Hello out there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world.
Good middle of the night, because I'm sure somebody's watching this at 3 in the morning.
That's true, because we have a lot of people that tune in after the fact where they helps them, us bantering back and forth helps them go to sleep for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know why. We're entirely too high energy for that.
Either that or we keep them up.
That may be the point.
That may be the point.
Yeah.
You know, we need to give Mackenzie a nice intro. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It's time for another episode of Sound Bites. This is the SoundTraxx podcast, Train Talk from Milepost 141.
You're being rather quiet over there. Did you forget what you were going to say?
No, I'm making sure she has enough time to put the intro in.
I'm pretty sure she can do a cut, you know.
Well, I know, but I like to... Anyway. Well,
what's that famous statue? The guy who's...
The thinker.
Yes.
The thinker. He's just the thinker.
Yes.
All right.
We've done our thinking for today.
You know,
That's enough of that.
We're a little hopped up on goofballs. We just got back from Trainfest just the other day, so I will say we had a great time. We got to meet a lot of you folks out there.
Yes.
So thanks to everybody who came out. We were doing $5 rebates. It seemed like we were doing really well with that as well.
Yeah. Your clinic actually had pretty good attendance as well, I hear.
Yeah, I had about 25 or 30 in each of the clinics.
Nice.
Most of them were sticking around. There were some other logistic issues with the building and so forth, so we saw a lot of people, but maybe there were some logistic issues that kept people away. Mm. So we want to invite you guys to try to make the trek out to Trainfest next year. Keep an eye out. We had a great time. It's a great show. A lot of vendors, lots of stuff. I saw you running around with a bag. What did you end up buying?
So I have a friend who really likes anime, and for some reason, I can't explain why, he's obsessed with 39, which is like this weird train anime about an intergalactic railway. Anyway.
Seems like that'd be right up your alley.
You'd think so, but whatever. He's gotten me to watch it with him a few times, and we have a bunch of in-jokes about it, but whatever. Anyway, the locomotive depicted in that is a Japanese C-62, a Hudson.
Okay.
Somebody had one in N scale at the show, so I picked it up. I'm going to do it up with a decoder, do it up in 39's paint scheme, and give it to him at some point.
Well, you better hope your friend doesn't listen to this now. Because now you just gave away the surprise.
Oh, true.
Well, he won't see you for a while, so...
Probably not.
Okay.
He'll probably forget about it.
There you go. So, but anyway, I found a few things. I had to go visit Tangent Models.
Okay.
They just released some more 86-foot boxcars, which for some reason or other I have this weird obsession. I buy a bunch of them. They're huge boxcars.
Yeah, they don't really fit on your layout that well.
No, I bet right now if I put all the 86-foot boxcars I have nowhere to run my train because I'd put the
entire layout is now a yard.
Yeah, just 86-foot boxcars lined up end to end. I don't know why. They're cool.
You have a problem.
You just figuring that out.
Well, you have many problems, but this one specifically is also a problem.
Well, I like it because, and you've experienced this as well, we give it as a operator's challenge.
Yes.
Trying to handle the 86-foot boxcar to Callahan Auto.
Yes, getting it in there is tricky.
Which any of you guys, you get the reference from Callahan Auto? Let me know in the comments below. Okay. Or the discussion, whichever platform this is on, I guess.
YouTube, I think.
Well, then we have Spotify and every the others. So wherever comment sections are held, put some comments there. Give us some thoughts on whether you caught the Callahan Auto reference.
We're doing scavenger hunts now. Last time it was how many videos has my P5A showed up in. This time it's how many.
Did you ever answer her? Did you ever answer Mackenzie? Oh, okay.
That was actually fewer than I thought.
Oh, well, then there you go. So, well, there you go. So, anyway, one of the cool things is we do have a lot of viewers out there who are watching it. We had a few people come up and say they watch the podcast, they enjoy it. for some reason or other, they still watch it with you on it.
So shout out to all you guys for putting up with my ugly mug.
There you go. So, well, let's see what stuff we've been working on. Norman, I only see one model here. What's going on?
Correct. I don't have anything again this week for reasons that I will discuss closer to the end of the show, so stick around for that.
Uh-oh. Do I want to know? So
not ominous sounding at all.
Yeah, really. All right, so let's get this other camera going here.
And you didn't have it recorded already? Or
I apparently forgot to hit the record button. I looked over and it was black or turned off or whatever. So
typical George.
Let's see. Is this going to work now? Okay.
Let's not creep out all our viewers. I made a joke about them putting up with my ugly mug, but I'm pretty sure when you do that, you're going to drive all of them away.
I'll scare the hell out of them.
Yeah.
Anyways, I've got here, this is an Athearn GP38. I've been on a GP38 kick lately.
I mean, they're good locos.
I got 5 of them running on my small switching layout.
Oh, jeez.
So I think I actually went into the bins and pulled out a Jeep 15, so I'm going to start working on one of those again.
Okay.
Even though I know our friends at Athearn are going to be shipping their Jeep 15s very soon, which I'm really, really excited for. Jeep 15s are actually my favorites. But the GP38s, somehow I managed with 5 of them running on the layout now.
Okay.
Some of them you've seen here on the podcast. But this is one of the older runs. And when I say older, meaning it's probably going back 10 years maybe. Mm-hmm. Maybe longer than that. But what I did on this, I'm going to bring the camera in a little closer. As you can see the headlight on there. Let's try to angle it a little bit to the side. But what I did was I put the headlights on there, and let's turn on my Blunami because my phone went to sleep also. So I've got my Blunami, and let's screen record this so that you guys can see what I'm seeing here. And screen record. All right, so on this, I've got a Blunami installed in there, and it's a Blunami P&V. And what I've done on this is I've actually added a lot of the lights. So, of course, we have our headlight on and off. But here on the screen, you can see that I have, and for those of you who are listening on audio, I'm showing this screen of the Blunami where I've renamed the functions. So instead of having it listing as FX3, FX4, FX5, I've got it labeled out.
Maybe show where they can rename that as well.
And so to do that, you can just simply pull, in this case, the Apple version, you can just simply pull it out a little bit and you can enter text where you can rename stuff. On the Android version, which we're working on, you can go into the Manage Function Panel section and you can actually rename anything there, and then that's where you would do it. And what's going to happen eventually, the Apple version is going to be replaced with the Android version once they finish consisting, which we had some samples demo working this weekend at Trainfest.
We had the beta build.
The beta build. Now I just got a notification this morning that I got another beta build to fix a couple of little bugs that were found over the weekend. So
nice. I know I ran into one or two.
Yeah, so I got to update that, but I haven't had time to do it. But we're talking about this right now.
Yes.
Let's get back to the Locomotive. So this is one of the older Athearn GP38s, and one of the things I wanted to point out is when this model was released, Athearn was still using the 1.5 volt light bulbs.
Yeah.
Now, at the time, we had talked to them about it, and the staff that were working in the department, they were the ones adamant on sticking with the bulbs. They said they thought they looked better and they worked fine, and then so when we were building our decoders for them, we were actually building them with 1.5 volt regulators in them. So they lasted for quite some time. But those people moved on. And now new people have come in, and now they're all LEDs. But this was from one of the older releases. So what I did is I actually went through the model and took out all the 1.5 volt light bulbs, which it's just the headlight and backup light. So there were 4 bulbs, 2 on the front, 2 on the back.
Yeah. And
I replaced them with LEDs. So you can see on the screen the headlight, which is interesting, and I think I left it because I think it's kind of different, is the bottom light is a lot brighter than the top bright. And I think I know why. I think there's something actually in the light pipe area. Well, it's not a pipe, it's kind of open. I put the LED behind it, but I think I forgot to cut the pin for the horn short. So I think it's actually blocking the LED some, but it makes a cool little effect, so I've just left it.
Okay.
Just to show some variation.
Yeah.
And then of course we have the 2 LEDs on the back, but on this one I've also added the front class lights, which you can see in the second screen, or in the camera, the close-up camera. And then of course I've got the rear class lights as well, so when you come around to the back of the locomotive, we can turn on the rear class lights there, so you can kind of see that they're illuminated. Then after that...
Yeah. So tell me a bit more about how the Mopac used its class lights then, because I know it seems like you only have the single color.
I just have the single color. When I'm modeling, 1978, they actually started this in the 60s, but pretty much everything was relegated to what are called extras. So the extras are indicated with white or clear class lights, and that method dates back to even steam days, when they would flag the train. And so if you had no flags, that was the scheduled train. If you had a green flag, told you that was the scheduled train with a following section. And then even the following section could in turn have green flags as well. Yeah. So any trains waiting to meet for that pass would have to note there's the green flag, so they had to wait for the next section of the train. And there could be any number of sections, but most of the time it was one following section.
Yeah. So I take it by this point they had pretty much deprecated the green and the red.
Yeah, and the grid would have been for pushing, but at the early days they wouldn't be pushing on a wooden caboose, for example. So there was no reason to have the locomotive on the rear to shove against them. Now, of course, in the 70s and early 80s, before they were taken over by the Union Pacific.
The Union Pacific.
There you go. What happened was they started building more and more steel cabooses, but they didn't really have helpers all that often, and if they did, they were just going up a hill. The Mopac was mostly a Granger railroad, so mostly flat. Okay. But anyway, then
I just asked because I know that sort of varies a lot by railroad.
It does.
For Conrail, I know that we only had the red.
Yes.
White and green were actually deprecated.
Yeah.
And that they were only used on the helpers.
Correct. So, and then of course, like I said, the white is for extra. So in this particular case, we're looking at the locomotive, it would be extra 2121. And so if you were saying meet at milepost, siding, milepost, whatever, for a passing of extra 2121, when you see this come along with the clear class lights on, it would pass. Yeah. Now here's your fun fact. Now, let's say for argument's sake, if a train had an issue on the line and they had to throw something in front of it, they would still have the class lights on this unit because that's the train indicator. Yeah. So their class lights and your number boards may not always be illuminated on the lead unit, so that's one of the things to kind of keep in mind when you're doing your layout. If you decide you need helpers over a hill, let's say, you can put them on the front, but that train number is still extra 2121. Okay. So I've got the front and rear class lights on here. Now the other thing is the next ones I illuminated was the number boards, which I labeled them wrong. I pushed the button.
Good job.
So, and I thought I did. I was afraid I did that. That's why I was a little tentative. But anyway, so next up I have the number boards. Yeah, I can fix that, and I'll do it here in a second. But we have the number boards, and again, the number boards would be illuminated. I have not done the rear number boards, quite frankly, because the way these were all cast in on these models, and so it means a lot of cutting and drilling and sanding to make sure it's
I remember
proper.
At one point you were faffing about with the printer, trying to get the numbers printed on the decal sheets.
Correct. And that's how I did the front number boards here. Okay. Because when Athearn did these, and I'll share this with you guys, these Genesis models, and especially the ones that have the positionable windows, the actual cavity behind the number boards is actually open. And so they're easy to light. You literally just drill a hole, stick an LED in it, and put it in there, and so the lens just pops right out. You just reach in there with the tip of a sharp knife and just slowly work it. It pops right off. The problem is what they did was they printed the white numbers and then printed the whole back of it black. So you can light it, but what happens is that now you've got black paint in front of that LED. And I've tried various ways of sanding it just lightly enough to try to help maybe take the black paint from behind the numbers, since there's 2 layers of paint there and only one on the rest of it. Yeah. But it ended up not doing it very well. So basically I went and got some white decal paper for everybody. You know, the funny thing, I started calling it decal paper just to annoy people, but that's what you like to call it. So it didn't work. But anyway, so I just went and found some white inkjet decal paper and then printed it on Word. And the cool thing is that you can make these really easily at home. The Baltimore and Ohio Historical Society, if you go to their website, and I don't have the link right in front of me here, obviously, because we're kind of doing this on the fly a little bit. But if you go to their website, you can actually download the font that you can plug into your Word document, your Word program. And then you can use that number font to create number boards. Okay. You just have to know. Now these, I believe, in memory, I'm doing this by memory, I think they're 5.5 point. And what I did was I highlighted all of it with a black highlighter and then used white letter numbers in the black print, and then just did all lines with 0 point line spacing. Okay. So that way the highlights were back to back, so I didn't have a white line right above the numbers, and then the numbers come through white. Well, the inkjets don't print white, but that's why you're using the white decal paper. Yeah. And so it comes on just perfect. So now when you glue it back in, I use some microscale crystal clear to just put a little dab of glue around the edge, put it, and it just kind of presses right back in place. Okay. And then you just wire it to the decoder with your necessary resistors. Yeah. Really easy. And then the last one I did, of course, as I mentioned, they're mislabeled here on the screen, but when you type in the ground lights, these are the ground lights down here that you can see. And those are actually Nick's Train's loco lights, he calls them. They're 0201 LEDs that are, I think that's what those are. Anyway, they're in a lens housing that he 3D prints and then wires them up with some magnet wire. Okay. So you literally just drill a small hole, in this case through the underside of the frame, run the wires up, and then just carefully route them through the shell, and then take them to the decoder. So that way we can do it. And with all of these lights, you'll notice that the headlight is not quite as bright as the the headlight is brighter than the number boards and the class lights. And that's by design, because our decoders have the feature where you can make the lights on but dim. You can adjust the brilliance, so that way your headlights and your number boards and your class lights all don't look like headlights coming down the track. Yeah, on-off brightness 1 and on-off brightness 2. Correct. So this is the latest addition to the roster. And then, of course, I had to add we've talked about them in the past, the magnetic air hoses and the magnetic... you didn't bring a piece of rolling stock to demonstrate that with again? Yeah, I didn't. But I've shown it. We showed it with a couple of locomotives, so it's just cool. So anyway, that's kind of the latest project I've been working on. So I just pulled that GP15 out. One of the other ones I've got that I've just started working on. I think I've got 3 more of the original Athearn Mopac runs. Okay. To still upgrade to LEDs, because this isn't a 5-minute project to overnight add a whole bunch of LEDs to it. Takes a little bit of time. So. Well, I must say I am. I was looking at the specs the other day, and I'm kind of surprised the GP39 didn't take off more than it did. Yeah, there's a lot of things. A lot of the railroads, like the Missouri Pacific, for example, they standardized on a lot of EMD power. And the idea was a lot of interchangeable stuff. But yeah, that little bit of extra turbocharge adds a little horsepower. And
Apparently, it just didn't.
It was right in that area where they started going more towards the 6-axle stuff for mainline.
Yeah.
Because the GP60 and 50s never really picked up as much. The 50s for sure, because they had a lot of issues with the 645Fs, the prime movers and so forth.
Yeah,
So
I'm
they
just
quickly-
thinking more in terms of the fuel efficiency, because that 12-cylinder with the turbo producing more power, what you'd think would use less fuel than the 16-cylinder non-turbo.
Yeah,
But
that's
apparently
true.
it never took off.
So, but anyway, so when you do these lights, that's kind of how I've been doing it. So I'll mount the LED in there, and one of the things that drives me nuts a little bit is to have glow. And so when you're mounting your LEDs, before you do it, I mean, and this is why it takes so long. It takes a little bit of patience, because what I'll do is once I drill the holes where I want them, then that's just the beginning. I don't then quickly glue the LED in, because especially a lot of these manufacturers now are starting to use a gray plastic, and it's a really light that tends to be a little bit translucent. And so what happens is if I was just to leave these LEDs behind the lens right there, you'd get the most bulk of the light coming through the hole, but then you'd get a little glow around the outside of it. So to eliminate that, what I've been doing is then I'll paint the inside of the shell black, and even going through the hole, so that way it doesn't like shine through and create a glow. And then once that's dried, then I'll come back with a silver paint. And the reason for doing that is because if the light's extinguished, when you're looking at it, in the real world, you might see the reflector. And so my theory of that, I can't really prove it, it's more of a theory, but in certain glimpses, you might be able to see a little bit of that silver
I can
shining
see a
through.
little bit of it here with the tail light.
Yeah, with the rear headlight. So it's one of those things that it's an extra step, and you got to wait for more paint to dry, but it's better to do it. And you really want to make sure to wait the paint to dry, because then when you glue your LED, if your paint's not dry, your paint gets all over the LED, and it extinguishes coats the LED and kind of eliminates the whole point of what you're working on.
Yeah.
So each
And
one of
then
those
don't you also put a little coating on the LEDs themselves?
Not
Just
there.
to protect them?
Oh, yes, I'll dip that in a little bit of microscale crystal clear.
Okay.
And that kind of creates an insulating. But usually if I'm doing like the lenses here on the class lights, I don't usually do that because there's nothing in there.
Yeah.
But if I'm putting it up into, say, like a brass housing for a steam locomotive or something, then absolutely I do.
Okay.
So that C19 battery power, ON3 C19 you saw, that thing actually has 4 coats of microscale crystal clear on it.
4?
Because it's an O scale, and I wanted to look more like a light bulb when it was extinguished.
Oh, yeah.
So you kind of get a little bit of that bulb inside the lens when you see it, because, again, it may be extinguished, and so you can see that LED coming in there.
Yeah.
So it's just taking the extra time. So once the paint's dry, then I'll glue the LED on. I'll just use a small amount of cyanoacrylate to tack glue it in place. And then once it's dried, once this CA's glue is dried where I want it, then I'll take a toothpick, put a big old blob of that microscale crystal clear on the back of it, making sure, like, say, for example, if number boards, like on an Atlas model, for example, where the number boards and the headlight lens are right next to each other, you have to be really careful not to overspray or blob over, because then that light's just going to go through the microscale crystal clear, which of course is translucent, and then everything glows. But anyway, I put the blob of the microscale crystal clear to actually glue it in place, because that stuff kind of remains slightly pliable, so you can peel it up easily after you're done. And then once that's dried, then you paint another coat of silver, then you paint another coat of black over it, and that all helps seal the light into just that lens coming out. And so it's a lot of work, but it'll also drive me nuts if I saw light glow coming down from under the body shell.
The results speak for themselves.
Yeah, so it takes a little bit of time, but the patience pays off.
Oh, yeah.
And so I try to do these fairly quickly, but, a friend of mine once told me, he said, George, if you don't feel like working on the model, go over there and drill a hole and then go to bed, because you still made progress.
Yeah.
And in this case, if I don't really feel like spending a whole lot of time, especially during the week with work and hockey and everything else going on, I may not feel like doing a whole lot of work. So I can go in there and, let's say one night I glue all the LEDs in place, and then put the crystal clear over it, and then go to bed. The
Yeah.
next day I wake up, paint the silver on the lens or that blob of microscale, and go to bed. That's easy, but it's still progress, and it's still one more thing. And then the next day I come in, oh man, that was a late game. I'm still wound up on everything, so let's paint some black. Time to go to bed. So it's always progress.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's the models, and this is what I've been trying to do. So you guys will, take some time, learn the efforts. We've actually done a video showing you how I do this. If you go to our YouTube channel and search adding LEDs with GP7s and the word SoundTraxx or some semblance thereof, you can find it on our YouTube channel. So.
Okay.
But anyway, we'll move this out of the way, and we'll kind of cut the other camera off. So now, one thing I did want to talk about before I let Norman tell whatever he's going to
steal the stage.
We just got back from Trainfest, as I mentioned, and the one thing I wanted to point out is, and I'm always amazed by this, how many people either didn't know Blunami does this, that, or the other thing. People already kind of dismiss it, but then they come over and I start putting it in their hands.
Yes.
They start telling us, man, that is freaking cool. And, I was talking to a customer this weekend. I'll call him a fellow modeler because that's what they are. And he said, yeah, I've seen it, but I don't really need it. And I said, well, what is it about it? And you kind of answered, well, I already have DCC. I said, well, I understand that, but what do you model? He said diesel. So I said, okay, you like to run multiple units together. He said, yeah. I said, well, what do you do when you run the consist? He goes, oh, well, now I have to go in and consist CV9, set CV19, 21, 22, 245, and 246.
And that's where we answer that, hey, Blunami does all of this automatically. So that's no longer necessary.
Right. And so when I started showing it to him, and then we also have the Android version, and as I mentioned, that's going to replace the current Apple version once it's done. But the Android version actually has a couple utilities that are really cool. So going back to my story with 5 GP38s, if I wire them up exactly the same way, where number boards and class lights and whatever are all on the same function output, with the Android tablet, I can actually, or Android phone, I guess, you can actually put in there copy CVs to Loco. So I can store the CVs in the app, and then I can copy those CVs to another Locomotive in a matter of seconds, rather than having to go in and
set everything individually
and do it one at a time. So it does tend to speed it up a lot. So that's a really good thing. And when I started showing him all these things, he was like, I may have short sold this thing. I think I'm going to go try one. This is cool. And that's all we're encouraging you guys, is to try it out. I've never had anybody come up to me and tell me they wasted their money. It is, full disclosure, it is a few dollars more, but those few dollars go to the extra hardware, including the Bluetooth chip and stuff like that.
And it's the software development.
And the software for the app development. So that's basically what it is. And so with that, you get the ability to do everything on your phone. And as we were talking about with these lights, I'm going to show you how quick and easy it is to fix this. So we're still screen recording here. So I'm going to pull this out and I'm going to fix this. So here I'm going to write number boards. Oops, usually helps if I spell it right. Details.
Isn't that what autocorrect? Wait, no, you call it autocorrupt, don't you?
Something along those lines. And then we're going to change this to ground lights. And there, now I'm done. So now when I change the lights out, they're done properly. And it doesn't take but a few seconds. And like I said, this will change a little bit with the Android. You just go into Manage Function Panel, because at the bottom here you have your gear setting. And this is where you can make all your adjustments, your settings. And talking about consisting locomotives, consist functions right there. This is where I can tell the app which functions to send to which locomotive based on its position in the consist, so that way I can get the horn, the bell, the class lights, and number boards on the lead unit, but then all the units in the consist would get the brakes. Or dynamic braking, or mute, for example, is another option. So all those are covered in all of the Blunami apps. So, guys, I definitely encourage you to try this out. We've had a few other people that have told us that, they say, well, I haven't heard of it. And so we try to advertise as much as we can. So if you have Blunami users out there, please tell your friends about it. This thing is cool.
And the other thing is several hobby stores now have Blunami demo logos as well.
That is correct.
So if you have a local hobby store, see if they have a Blunami demo logo you can try out.
Yeah.
You may not even need one for yourself to try it out.
Yeah.
And then you see if you like it or not.
Absolutely. And
we hope you will, but...
Right, absolutely. Well, be sure to check our videos, too, on our YouTube channel where we've talked about Blunami. If you have any questions, such as range, for example.
Yes.
How does the Bluetooth protocol work? Does it interfere, do I lose after 30 feet or something?
Nope.
Because people are used to their headphones. And the answer is no. We actually advertise up to 100 feet. But the video took it 145 feet before we lost connection.
I think it was 144.
144 foot. It was the 145 when I took that extra step, it disconnected. And all the features. And it is a full-featured Tsunami too, that you get everything.
Yep.
And so it's also a DCC decoder. So if I was to take this Blunami and run it with, say, one of your Tsunami 2 or Econami UK locomotives, if I wanted to degrade my locomotive by running it with your UK stuff.
Improve it, you mean?
We can just run it with DCC.
We built proper locomotives, thank you, sir.
We build it, it runs just on the DCC system, so you get the best of all worlds. So if you still want to use your proto throttles, or if you want to use your hammerheads, or whatever, push the button, feel the throttle, you still get you still get it to where you can run it on DCC, and then you can use the app to do all your settings and adjustments and things like that. So a lot of really cool stuff, and guys, I can't tell you enough. I really encourage you to try this out. And I realize, yes, I have the name on my shirt, but as a fellow model railroader, I'm telling you, this is the way to go.
Oh, yeah.
And what was interesting, and one last thing, is I had a friend of mine who was playing around with the Blunami for the first time in my house, and he said, George, he said, this is what DCC promised us in the beginning. Mm-hmm. And I said, yes, I love that. Can I use that? And he said, absolutely. I said, great, I love it. So
there you go.
But anyway, so try it out, guys. I encourage you to experiment and test one out, and you may find that you like it a lot, and it's really cool. So anyway, so with that,
I am stealing the stage.
You're going to steal the stage here, I guess. So Norman, you hadn't worked on anything, so what have you been up to?
Yes, I actually have taken a new job. I will be leaving SoundTraxx here at the end of the week. So we are recording this on the 26th, right before Thanksgiving, and my last day will be tomorrow.
Well, happy birthday to me. I'm just kidding. Actually, this is, terrible news, Norman. You've been a great asset to our team. I really appreciate all the work you have done for us over the years. Wish you nothing but the best in your future endeavors. But that, of course, meant that you don't have anything to work on because you've been too busy packing and doing all your stuff. So tell them a little bit about what you're going to be doing.
So I am going to go and work for Norwegian Cruise Lines. As some of you may know, if it came up, I know a couple people I've told this to, but my background is actually in theatrical lighting design. That's what I went to school for. That's what I was trained in. And that's what I was going to do before COVID hit.
Mm-hmm. And then I stole you.
Yes. And so, but everything's opening back up, and Norwegian was looking for a lighting designer, so I applied, and they liked me, so.
I don't know why. I'm just kidding. So, yes, so Norman will be departing. So for those of you guys, I know by this time this is published. It'll be a few weeks later, but we do have a new hire taking your place. His name's Graham.
Yes.
And he's already been in training now for 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And he's very well versed. He's a fellow model railroader. He's another youngster like you, wet behind the ears. And so we're real excited to have him here as well. So guys, be sure to welcome Graham on with us. And so it'll be a little bit before we bring Graham onto the podcast, but we'll do I'll have a couple episodes where I'll do them by myself, maybe have some guests on and stuff like that. So this isn't the end of the podcast.
I mean, I'm still available by video call if you want to bring me in.
Well, you work here. Why would I voluntarily bring you in? I'm just kidding. We'll probably have Norman back on a couple of times here and there. So absolutely, that's a great idea, and I like it. So.
All right.
But anyway, I guess that's enough. Wrap up this conclusion of this episode. I don't even remember. I have 12 listed on my notes here.
We never know what
But I don't
episode we're
remember what
doing.
it is. So, well, with that, I guess that's everything we've got for this podcast. I know it ran a little long, but we kind of did some detail. We
I
kinda
keep
shared
telling
a lot
you,
of it.
scope creep.
Well,
They keep getting longer.
I'm trying to keep them short.
I know, but
We don't-
it's the rule of podcasts. You start out saying, it's only going to be 30 minutes. It's only going to be 30 minutes. Well, now it's going to be 45. Well, now it's going to be 45. Well, now it's an hour.
Well, now when actually you say that, it's going to be funny because when you're gone, I have to spend the first 30 minutes knocking you because you're not here.
Why am I not surprised?
Yeah, well, it is what it is. So anyway, with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up this episode of Train Talk from Milepost 141. This is the SoundTraxx Sound Bites, Sound Bits. I always get that screwed up. Sound Bits.
Sound Bites.
SoundTraxx Sound Bites podcast. So, guys, thanks for watching. We appreciate it. We look forward to seeing you guys each and every time. And with that, I know Thanksgiving, the American Thanksgiving will have already passed, but happy Thanksgiving. We also want to wish everybody Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and everything that's coming up here in December as we move forward. So, with that, I guess we'll sign off today. And Norman, get the hell out of here.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.